Hello, kindergarten. You should have your um, phonics pages out, starting with the Johnny Appleseed. We're going to talk about Johnny Appleseed today. Um, and things we're continuing about fall, things you do in the fall. We're talking about fall harvesting. In my book, it says fall harvesting. It says in the fall, farmers harvest their ripened crops. In some areas, pumpkins and apples are part of the crops to be harvested. So some of you, I'm sure, go to the pumpkin patch in the fall and get a pumpkin, or you might pick apples in the fall or drink apple cider. Those are things that we do. And we're going to learn about Johnny Appleseed. He was known as, his real name was John Chapman. He was known as Johnny Appleseed. He was a legendary American who planted apple trees and supplied them to the pioneers in the Midwest. He owned many nurseries but lived a very simple life. Nurseries, not meaning like a nursery for like nursery school for children, nurseries meaning places where you plant trees. They also call those nurseries, where place where you plant a bunch of trees. People can buy trees from a nursery. He spent 50 years growing apple trees and spreading them around the country. So I'm going to read you a story called Johnny Appleseed. So you can either just look at my picture that I have up here of your paper, just look at your paper. That's a picture of him. Later we'll color. I would tell you to color your paper while I'm reading, but I don't know if you'll pay attention to what I'm reading. So maybe just sit and uh, listen to my story. So I'm going to read my story to you. Then you can answer the questions, and then we'll you can color this later. I think it's pretty easy to follow the key. All right, so the name of the story is Johnny Appleseed. Johnny smiled as he entered the clearing. He kept walking until he got to the middle of the meadow. Then he stopped and looked all around. Yes, this will do, he thought, as he set his pack on the ground and took out a small shovel. He dug down and lifted some of the soil out of the ground. Then he sifted through the soil, checking to see if it was rich enough for his seeds to grow. After deciding the soil was good, he set about clearing the meadow. He chopped down small trees and bushes and piled them like a fence around the outside of the area that he would be planting. It was important to keep out the wild animals. Johnny took a break from his work to set up a rough shelter and start a campfire. He did this often as he traveled from place to place. Johnny had a desire to plant apple trees everywhere so that the settlers would not go too hungry. He set his cooking kettle over the fire, filled it with some potatoes, a few vegetables, and a little meal, and made a delicious vegetable soup. He pulled out a handful of berries that he had found that day and enjoyed their sweetness. He ended his meal with an apple, being careful to remove the seeds and spread them out to dry by the fire. Early the next morning, Johnny continued the hard work of clearing the meadow and building up the fence around the clearing. Days later, after clearing about 2 acres of ground, he pulled out his precious bag of apple seeds and began the favorite part of his task, planting row after row of apple seeds. They called him Johnny Appleseed, although his real name was John Chapman. He loved traveling from place to place, planting apple seeds and knowing that families would be helped by his work. He would load up his sack with apple seeds that he got at cider mills and then plant the seeds through the wilderness. He would return to the meadow later to mend any broken fence and tend to the ground. If he found settlers nearby, he would sell them the small apple trees that he grew. He was often paid in food or used clothing. If the settlers had nothing to offer, he just gave them the trees. As the wilderness began to fill with families, Johnny was welcomed into their homes. He shared his favorite book, the Bible, and stories of his travels. Johnny was a gentle and kind and got along with everyone, including the animals. So the next time you take a bite from a juicy red apple, remember Johnny Appleseed and his dedication to making apples available to everyone. So he was being a kind, good neighbor to all his friends, all the people he didn't know. to help them have food to eat to the settlers. So I'm going to ask you the questions, see if you can answer them. How did Johnny decide the ground was good for planting? What did he do to figure out that the ground was good for planting? He picked up some of the soil and looked at it. So remember at the beginning of the story, he talked about he scooped up some of the and checked the soil to see if it was good for planting. What did John Chapman plant? What did he plant? Apple seeds, right? You probably all got that right. Why do you think Johnny liked planting apple seeds so much? Why do you think he might have liked planting them? Perhaps he had been hungry at one time and wanted others to have plenty to eat when they came and settled out west. Maybe that's why, or just to be kind to people, huh? What was the wilderness? What is the wilderness? Does anybody know what the wilderness is? The wilderness is land that people did not live on. So he was going out where there weren't people living yet, but eventually people did move out there, and they were able to eat his apples. It takes time for the apple trees to grow, years, until they're able to have apples on them. Where did Johnny put the trees and bushes he cut down? Remember at the beginning it said he was cutting them down. What did he do with them when he was cutting them down? He piled them up to make a fence. So what did Johnny have for his supper? Remember the part about he made his own little makeshift camp, and what did he have for supper? He used the vegetables to make vegetable soup, and he had some berries in his pocket. And he finished it off with what? An apple. Did Johnny Appleseed always have to cook for himself? Did he always cook all the time? Later in the story, it said that he didn't. That's when he would see some of the settlers, and they would invite him and have him come in to eat dinner with them. So they would invite him over for a meal. What two things did Johnny Appleseed talk about when he was in the settlers' homes? There were two things that he would talk to them about. Do you remember what they were? He would share his stories about his travels with them. And the other thing, the Bible. Yeah, he would share his Bible with him. It was his favorite book. So it says, of those two things, which do you think was the most important? Sharing his stories or the Bible? Of course, the Bible, huh? Teaching the Bible would have a longer lasting results. Again, you want to teach them about God's word. That would be very important. Okay, so you have this worksheet to do, which you can do the coloring part later if you already didn't do it. Some of you, I'm sure, already did it. And we're going to flip our page over. We're going to talk about long E. I'm just going to use this little chart on your paper since you're not here with me in class. And we're going to talk about a long E. Remember, a long vowel says its name. So a long E is E. So we have easel. We have an easel. We have a bee, a teepee, and an eagle. So go ahead and trace your E and practice writing your E's. Trace your S and practice writing your S. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we're going to read these to see which goes with which picture. Okay, so let's read the sentences. The first sentence says, Dave will eat peas. Let's read the next one. Dave will heat the peas. So what is he doing? He is eating the peas. So you're going to fill in the circle here where Dave will eat the peas because it looks like he's eating them in the picture. Let's look down at the next one. Here, there's our new service word for the week. They. They ride bikes. Those are a couple words we had from last week. The next one is they sip tea. There's nobody drinking there. You see the bikes in the picture, so you're going to fill in your dot there for they ride bikes. Okay, you can get your next page. The long E sound. Now the directions for this say, circle each picture that has the sound of long E that you hear in seal. Everybody trace over the circle C around the seal. So I'll read to you what each one of these are. We have teepee. Do you hear a long E? Yes. So circle teepee. Coat. Do you hear a long E in coat? What long vowel sound do you hear in coat? Oh, right. Oh. Let's move down to the next one. Let's move down to this. Eagle. Eagle. Do you hear a long E in eagle? Yes. Circle eagle. Bee. Bee. Do you hear a long E in bee? Yes. So circle bee. And we have key. Key. Do you hear long E? Yes. Circle key. We'll go down to the next row. We have gate. Gate. Do you hear a long E? No. What long vowel sound do you hear? Gate. A. We hear a long A. Right. This next one is a tube. Tube. Do we hear a long E in that? Nope. What long vowel sound did we hear in this? Tube. A long U. Right. And our last one, three. Three. Do you hear long E? Yes. So you want to circle number 3. Okay, you can turn your page over. The directions for this page say, draw a line to match each word with the correct picture. And our ending sound here is eat, E-A-T, eat. Remember, you only hear our first vowel, E, Miss Long. Hear the long, remember that's Miss Silent there is the A. You don't hear the A. Eat. So they did the first one for you. What do you do to a drum? You beat. So trace the line there. And you put an S in front of eat and you have seat. So draw a line from the word seat. Let's go over to the next one. We have TR, treat. And then the next one we have heat. So which one? Treat. Treat would be your milk and cookies. And what is the pot doing? It's heat the kettle. The steam you can see coming out, so it's hot. Next, we're going to go down to, we have EAT. Look, EAT up here. Eat. Eat. What is she doing? She's eating, looks like ice cream. Eat. And then you put an N in front of it. Neat. Neat. That's a nice, neat pile of laundry. So you draw a line to that to match that one. Next, we have WH. We'll learn more about WH later on. WH, or maybe we already did learn WH. WH just sounds like a W. Wheat. Wheat. And then we have M in front of it, meat, meat. So draw your line. This is wheat. That's what wheat looks like there. Just draw your line to wheat and then to meat. Draw your line to meat. Okay. And that should be it for that page. Next, well, you can finish your Johnny Appleseed page. You have the bottom of that to finish coloring if you already didn't. And don't forget about doing your next page in handwriting, which is page 135. I like to eat peas. Make sure you don't forget to color it. And what color should those peas be? Think about that. Don't want to scribble make them pink or purple. They're peas. Peas are green, and that looks like a piece of meat there with it too. So go ahead and get those things done. And next up, we're going to get ready for your math test. You have your math test next.